The IDF has concluded an after-action review and confirmed that the Islamic Jihad was responsible for the strike at the Al-Hali Al-Ma'dani hospital in Gaza.
He is a liar. His spokesperson and digital spokesperson tweeted that Israel did the hit.
I am horrified by the hundreds of people killed at Al-Ahli Hospital. I call for an immediate humanitarian ceasefire.
I was deeply saddened and outraged by the explosion at the hospital in Gaza yesterday. And based on what I've seen, it appears as though it was done by the other team.
Mr. President, what do you mean by saying
Hello and welcome to our special broadcast. I'm Parikshit Luthara. The big story continues to be the conflict between Israel and Hamas, which has entered day 12. About 500 people have reportedly been killed in an explosion at a hospital in Gaza, according to Palestinian officials. Hamas has alleged that the Israeli military is responsible for this attack. However, the Israeli Defense Forces claim that the explosion was caused by a misfired rocket launched by Palestinian Islamic Jihad. Israel has also released audio tapes claiming to be purported conversations between Hamas militants about a rocket being misfired and hitting the hospital. CNBC TV18 has not been able to independently verify Israel's claims. Footage from the hospital show body bags on the ground and several injured people crying for help. Saudi Arabia, Iran, Russia have condemned the attack and the Israeli Defense Forces. Following the attack, United States President Joe Biden expressed his support for Israel in his meeting with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu in Tel Aviv. He said that the attack appears to have been done by the other team and added that Washington will provide Israel everything it needs to defend itself amid the continuing war in Gaza. The blast has sparked international outrage, with Jordan cancelling a summit with Biden and top Arab leaders. All right, let me now go across to our special guests this evening. We're joined by Kanwal Sibal, former Foreign Secretary and Chancellor of the Jawaharlal Nehru University. We're also joined by Mudar Kassis, Professor and Director at Palestine's Muwatin Institute for Democracy and Human Rights. Ambassador Sibal, let me come to you. Do you feel that the strike on this hospital... Now, Israel has said that it was not behind this attack. But do you think this could be a turning point in this war and how the international community sees it?
Well, I think, yes, in some ways it is a turning point. Even if Israel is right in saying that they are not responsible for this attack, and even if Biden says it's the other team that has done it, the Islamic opinion all over the world will not believe it, and many others will not believe it. So the question is not who's right and who's wrong. The question is of narratives or perceptions. And since Israel has been bombing buildings for the last so many days, as we have seen on our TV screens, therefore, even if in this case they're not responsible for the attack, the other side and the overall international opinion, non-West in particular, will not believe the Israelis. So I think the Israelis are in a very difficult position, and so is the United States. Because for President Biden to himself now come to Israel and to this theater, he is actually investing his own political prestige into this. And if at the end of the day, he's not able to contain the situation, obtain some concessions from Israel, press the other side to actually tone down or reduce their rhetoric, etc., then I think America will find itself in an extremely difficult position, and its international prestige will go down even further. At one time, it was the principal in terms of reshaping the Middle East. And now it would appear that they are fully backing Israel and will lose more and more standing and influence in the Islamic world in general. So I don't know what prompted President Biden to actually put himself out in this manner, expose himself to an ongoing conflict. But then maybe he had other concerns, which is that the conflict should not spread, that he should not be America should not be forced to use these aircraft carriers either against Hamas or eventually against Iran, because that would then mean an all-out war in the region with unpredictable consequences. So I'm afraid the situation is very, very dire, very difficult.
You're absolutely right.
The narrative management for Israel has become much more difficult.
All right, those are very important and critical views, Ambassador Sibal. Let me get in Professor Kassis also at this point. Professor Kassis, this seems to have united. This attack on the hospital in Gaza, where more than 500 people, including children, have been killed, it seems to have united the Arab world. What is the danger now of the conflict escalating? More countries getting an excuse to get involved?
Thank you. Well, look, the situation that we can see in Gaza should not be seen in isolation. It's not, an event on an island. It's part of a general tendency of escalating conflicts, of trying to vanish or to destruct completely the Palestinians, to annihilate Hamas, for example, to finish the Palestinian problem completely, to go against international law with impunity, and so on and so forth. So, and there is radicalization. Radicalization is taking place, I think, all over the world, and I'm just attempting to answer the question of my colleague of what prompted Biden to make this visit and take this course. I think he simply has to gamble. He feels that there is nothing much to lose, and the imperial powers, the United States, Israel, etc., are pushing very hard to survive the unilateral world order, survive their interests and the interests, etc. Now, back to your question about what will happen in the region. The region has been on turmoil since 14 years, since 2010, since late 2010. And things have been changing in Egypt, in Tunisia, in Morocco, in Lebanon, in Jordan, and so on and so forth. Palestine is a very central question to all Arabs. It's a central question to the region. It's a central question actually globally. And people have been witnessing all these deteriorations, and now there came a moment when a birth came about. Yeah.
Right, Ambassador Sibal, respond to what Professor Kassis was also saying, and the fact that Arab countries, led by Jordan, cancelled the Arab summit that was going to be held with President Biden. Is this an alarm for the United States right now?
Oh, yes. I think, look, the President of the United States has taken the trouble to come all the way to try and reduce tensions, find some meeting ground, prevent this conflict from escalating with Hezbollah or Iran joining. But it is not only empty diplomacy. He's also, as I said, brought in his aircraft carriers in order to tell the concerned parties that he's serious about it. But at the same time, look at this. He's come all the way, and a summit that was planned between him and the Egyptian president and the Jordanian king and the Hamas and the leader of the Palestinian Authority, that has been cancelled under pressure from public opinion. And he will not be able, therefore, to have this very critical meeting in order to try and contain the situation as best as he can from becoming more serious than it is. So I think certainly America, which was, as I said, once the principal player, and then it decided to disengage itself from the region, and now for it to come back with overt political support and unconditional support virtually for Israel, is not going to be seen very positive by public opinion in general. And you've seen, it's not only the Arab world in which there are these demonstrations and everything else. Muslims in the United States, across Europe, are demonstrating in the streets to the point that France, the President Macron, has banned pro-Palestine demonstrations in France because of fear that it may lead to violence locally. So the Arab opinion is inflamed, rightly or wrongly. They're going to blame Israel because, as I said, because of the fact that they've seen on their screen the last 5, 6 days how buildings are being bombed in Gaza. And then, of course, for Israel, even if, as I said, they're not responsible for this, others will say, no, we've seen them bombing, and this is one more thing that they have bombed. So, and then, of course, but there's one point I want to address, which the professor said about the Palestinian issue. I think the Gulf monarchies had begun to lose interest in the Palestinian question, frankly. And the fact that Israel had succeeded in establishing diplomatic relations with the UAE and with Bahrain and in Morocco, and there were serious discussions going on between the United States and Saudi Arabia to normalize relations between Saudi Arabia and Israel at the cost of the so-called Palestinian question. Now, Saudi Arabia actually detests Hamas. UAE detests Hamas. These countries in the Gulf, Bahrain, Qatar, detest Hamas because it's seen as part of the Muslim Brotherhood. It's Turkey that supports Hamas. These people want terrorism to go out of this region in which they are in. They want to concentrate on the economic development, etc., etc. They don't want to focus on the Palestinian question. Even now, if you see the statements coming from Saudi Arabia, they're talking about the rights of the Palestinian people to be given to them. But I have not seen any official statement, maybe I'm wrong, asking for a two-state solution. The Saudi statements, they're relatively mild. Mild. So it's the case of the UAE.
That is an important point.
Yeah.
Yeah. Professor Kassis, if I were to bring you in, what are Palestine's options right now? The world is differentiating between innocent civilians, the people of Palestine, and the terrorists of Hamas who control the Gaza Strip, and the civilians who are also caught there in the crossfire. What are Palestine's options currently?
I suspect that the options for Palestinians, for us right now, are not so different from what have been the case since the last 70 years or so. We need international solidarity. We cannot stand up for the Israeli occupation and the colonial condition alone. Israel is a very strong country supported by mighty countries. We cannot overcome Israel militarily or what have you. Hamas is part of the Palestinian fabric. The naming Hamas a terrorist organization, I don't think serves any good or resembles the truth. There are acts of Hamas that can be and should be defined as such if they are as such, attacking civilians, for example, on purpose or something of the sort, should be designated as such. But that is not what Hamas as a political movement is about. Hamas is about liberating an occupied territory. Hamas is about utilizing its right. I personally disagree with Hamas politics, but you cannot deny the right of these people to act whenever they are acting in accordance with international law, using the right to liberate themselves as a national liberation movement. Now, one of the problems that we are facing, and I hope we can get out of, is defining the Palestinian question as a religious question. It's not a religious question. It's not about Muslims and Jews. It's not about Muslims and Christians and Jews. It's about an occupied nation that does not have the right to self-determination, that has been denied this right, and that has been forced to live in dehumanized conditions, under colonial conditions, in poverty. Look, Palestine was one country up till 1940. Today, Israel has an income per capita that is something like 40 times more than the Palestinians. This was one economy 70 years ago, and look how it developed under the stress of coloniality.
Right. All right. My final question to you, Ambassador Sibal. What approach should India take, considering that it seems that the Arab world is uniting? Key countries, key players like that are very upset with what's happening with the Gaza hospital. What approach should India take going forward?
Well, India has very clearly called Hamas a terrorist organization without naming it. We call it acts of brutal terrorism. And this has been said more than once. And we have also expressed solidarity with Israel in this hour of need. But at the same time, we have also at length supported Palestinians' claim for a separate, independent, and a viable Palestinian state. So we've taken a balanced position. We cannot at all overlook what Hamas has done, because if you look at UN resolutions, G7 resolutions, G20 resolutions, SCO resolutions, BRICS resolution, one sentence in those is very, very pertinent, that no cause justifies recourse to terrorism. So even if the Palestinian cause is justifiable, what Hamas has done is not justifiable. So India will maintain this position that they cannot accept the use of terrorism as a political tool, but will support the legitimate demands of the Palestinian people. And of course, going ahead, we are part of the ITU2. There is this announcement of an India, Middle East, Europe corridor. We are interested in that, but this will have to be put on the hold for the time being.
Right. Okay, we're heading to a break, and we'd like to thank Ambassador Sibal and Professor Mudar Kassis for joining us here on the program. But up next, we'll continue this conversation on the Israel-Hamas war with the Congress MP in the Lok Sabha, Manish Tiwari, once we're back.